Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. So this is another video in this Express playlist. What I'm going to do now is just a little bit of bonus. So we're going to take the project that we already created using Express, and I'm going to show you how to set it up so that way you can create the project with a React front end, so that way you can practice React. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder. Okay, we're going to call this test3. So it's just going to be the setup of it. And I'm going to copy the API from test1. So I'm going to copy the test1 folder, that's the API we made, and paste that into this. And I'm going to rename this, backend. Actually, let me delete that. I'm actually better off copying when we separated it because it has already cores and all that stuff kind of set up. So I'm going to copy from our test2. That was when we did the front end and back end separately in this Express jQuery playlist thing. Okay, and I'm going to paste that in here. So that way there's the API. Okay, that's all set up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the terminal in the test3 folder. And again, separate back end, separate front end. So essentially the React project is really a separate application, separate from your back end API. Now I created a separate React template. It's much smaller, quicker to get set up than using like create React app. The way you use that, you can type in mpx merced reactor. Okay, mpx merced reactor, and you give it a name. So we'll just call it front end. And then you put in JS, meaning there's two templates. There's a TypeScript template and a JavaScript template. To use the JavaScript template, you type in JS at the end of the command. So mpx merced reactor front end, and this should spin up the project. Okay, there you go, building project folder, good. And the project is built. Front end, so we're going to cd into our front end project. And then we're going to do an npm-i, so that way it installs, because you see it's already, the template's already set up. So everything you need to work with React is already kind of configured here. Okay, all you need to do is just do an npm-i. So we do an npm-i, and that's going to install everything we need. And I already have scripts configured for this. So all you have to do is, when you're trying to do development, you just do npm run dev. And if for any reason you decide you need to change the port for whatever any reason, just change it here. So I think I have the API running on port 3000. Well, let me take a look at the API, because I'm going to run the API locally. So let me go back to server.js, take a look at the cores. HTTP git, what happened there? That should be HTTP. There we go. Save, and then what do I want? I think I have this by default on .env 3003 right now, so that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add to the whitelist HTTP localhost 3000. So that way our local React app can still pull from this API. Okay, cool. So we'll get into that in a second. I'll do that in the next video where we'll kind of run the API. So let me just close that for now. But what I do want to do is just show you how to run the script. So if I do npm run dev, this will run the file, and you'll see that sort of the default. So it's building on localhost 3000. Okay, and that's just the default. Everything you would want to work in is in this source folder. So everything is in this source folder that you need. Okay, this distribution folder, we'll come back to that when we get to deployment. But you're going to go to components. You have app.js. App.js is technically that front thing. Okay, so everything starts in app.js. That's generally how React works. So just to kind of understand how React works, is that what you're doing is you're injecting a bunch of stuff that's created by your JavaScript. So React creates your DOM for you, and all you're doing is you're creating it into components. So these components are like self-contained pieces of DOM. And you generally always start with an app component. And this app component then gets injected into your HTML via a target element. In this case, the target element is an element that has the ID app. So if I go here, see, we just have one div, the div that's called app. Okay, and what this does, it grabs that div and says, hey, React, inject everything in there. And what is it injecting? This app component, which is what we're defining over here. So and then this has this code here, and see, right now it has two other components, because in this template I pre-built a header and a footer component. So that way it's already there. So if you wanted to change the header and the footer, you can just go to components and then just edit header and footer. Okay, and do whatever you want there. And then for making more components, I left this template here, so you can literally just duplicate this file and create more components. Okay, and I'll go over that more in the coming videos. But basically, now that we're in dev mode, it'll automatically update. So if I were to go into the footer and say, hey, change this to this is my footer, and it saves, when I go back to the file, see, it automatically updates. So you'll be able to see your project build as we update these components. But again, everything in React are all these components built in your JavaScript. So really none of your websites really in the HTML. The only thing that's in the HTML is that div where you inject all your React code. So what happens is that React reads all these components, turns all your code into valid HTML, and injects it here. Okay, that's essentially what it's doing. And you'll notice that React uses a special JavaScript syntax called JSX. It's essentially HTML. It's a JavaScript that looks like HTML. That's what this is. So technically we're writing HTML in our JavaScript. It looks kind of weird. I'll go over that in the coming videos. But essentially you write it this way, and again, React will then read all your components and how you have them all set up, and then translate all of this into actual HTML, which then again injects into your HTML file right where you specified it. Okay, so that's the basic idea. But we have the template set up, we have the stuff installed, we ran dev, so that's good. Okay, the other command you have is build. Whenever you're done making your project, you're going to run this build command, npm run build, and that'll build the final version of your project in this dist folder. So this dist folder has sort of final output, a final working version of your project ready for deployment. So that's essentially how this template works. You build it here, and then when you're done, you run build. So you use dev while you're developing, and then when you're done, you run build. Okay, and then I'll walk through how we'll deploy this on Netlify in a little bit. But for now, we are good. I'll see you guys in the next video.